The church bells were still ringing when the doors burst open, and DeShawn walked Naomi down the center aisle. Not to the altar, but past it, past the white roses and the tall glass vases, toward the little side room where the pastor usually kept spare hymnals and a chipped teapot he refused to throw away. Naomi's wheelchair bumped over a loose tile. The bruise on her collarbone, shaped like a half-moon, throbbed beneath her scarf. She kept her chin up. On the other side of the glass panel, the guests whispered into their programs. A gospel choir hummed as if trying to stitch together a service unraveling before their eyes. This was supposed to be their vow renewal. 10 years. A decade of shared dreams. Somewhere a camera flash popped, then stopped. Maybe the photographer realized the moment was no longer a celebration. DeShawn's hand never touched hers. He guided the wheelchair with impersonal efficiency, the way a hotel porter rolls luggage. His suit was tailored navy, the pocket square crisp, the watch face catching the light like a blade. Beside him walked the woman Naomi had only ever seen from the corner of her eye, Kendra. Her perfume, sweet, high citrus, trailed like a ribbon none of them could cut. Her dress was the color of pomegranate seeds, and her smile didn't once reach Naomi. Pastor Samuel stood inside the side room like a startled stork. The walls smelled of lemon oil and old paper. On the table, a manila folder waited. DeShawn closed the door. He didn't sit. Neither did Kendra. Naomi's palms were damp on the wheelchair armrests, but her voice came out steady. "If you wanted privacy," she said, "a phone call would have done." DeShawn opened the folder. "This is me being kind," he said. "Nobody wants a scene." "You brought me to God's house for a kind scene?" Kendra's smile sharpened. "We're all adults." Pastor Samuel cleared his throat, fiddling with his wedding band. "Brother DeShawn, Sister Naomi, perhaps this isn't—" "It is," DeShawn said. "It absolutely is." He slid a stack of documents across the table, the pages fanning like a white wing. "Naomi, I'm filing for dissolution effective today. The papers are prepared. You just need to sign." The room dropped 5 degrees. The choir's humming leaked under the door, an anesthesia that couldn't touch the pain. Naomi stared at the black type as if it were written in a language invented to hurt her. Dissolution, property division, spousal support waived upon mutual consent. "You are leaving your wife," Pastor Samuel said slowly, "on the day you invited the city to bless your union again? Better than pretending." DeShawn's voice was too smooth. It rolled over the years, over late dinners and clipped arguments, over the accident that bent Naomi's legs and fate in one morning. "We have to be honest with ourselves. I want a new life." Kendra's nails clicked against her phone. "We all want what's best." Naomi lifted her eyes, dark, clear, unblinking. "You want what's easy." "Easy?" DeShawn's laugh was a small fire. "You think any of this is easy? Life with you became managing a situation. I didn't sign up to be a nurse. You changed." He gestured at her chair, at the scarf hiding the brace. "Everything changed." The words struck the air and hung there, cruel and heavy. Naomi's hands trembled, but her voice did not. "Everything changed," she said softly. "The day you ran a red to impress a woman who wouldn't even look at you at a gas station." Kendra flinched, just once. DeShawn's jaw clenched. Pastor Samuel murmured, "We are all under grace, and grace sometimes requires silence. Grace requires truth, Naomi said. She turned toward her husband of 10 years. Tell me, DeShawn, are you divorcing me because of the chair? Or because Kendra likes to laugh at your jokes? Kendra's smile went flat. Don't project your bitterness. Naomi looked at Kendra the way one might look at a knife left out in the rain. You're pretty, she said simply. So am I. Pretty is not a covenant. Pastor Samuel stepped forward, palms open. This is not the way, children. DeShawn ignored him. Naomi, you'll be taken care of. Short-term support. A lump sum for relocation. I already spoke to your mother about moving you closer to her. The house is mine. The car is mine. The business is mine. Everything you have with my name on it is ours, Naomi said, the calm in her voice startling even herself. The business was built with my contacts. The house was bought with a grant my aunt helped us secure. And the car, the one you used to spin through the intersection, is the reason I can't feel my feet. He leaned in. Then be wise. Sign. Don't make this uglier. Kendra's hand slid over his sleeve, a silent reminder that time and mercy both ran out. We have a reservation, she said lightly. Naomi's eyes fell to the bottom page, to a line that read in neat legal type. Division executed upon waiver of claim to any future or pending inheritance. She blinked. What is this? Standard. DeShawn didn't blink. It's boilerplate, just sign. Naomi's heart stuttered. Inheritance? From whom? Nobody, he said too quickly. You know your father left debts, not blessings. Just sign so we can... The door swung open, and air rushed like water into a broken gourd. Auntie Loretta, her mother's eldest sister, the one who wore Geel like a crown and always smelled of hibiscus tea, stood there in a gown the color of midnight. She didn't knock. She didn't ask if she could enter. She floated in on a wind Naomi could almost hear, something like the voices of the women who had prayed her through midnight after the accident. Child, Auntie said, ignoring Pastor Samuel's startled cough and Kendra's full-body sneer. She went straight to Naomi and cupped her face as if she were 5 again. They told me you were in here. I told myself I would arrive calm. Then I remembered who I am. She set a leather envelope on the table and looked up at DeShawn as if measuring a boy for a school uniform he did not deserve. Sign? You want her to sign? Auntie Loretta's fingers were rings of gold and stubbornness. Sign what, exactly? DeShawn straightened. This is not your... Everything concerning her is my business, Auntie said, especially what concerns her father's bloodline. Pastor, forgive my tone. I am too old to pretend. Pastor Samuel lifted his palms again. We are all family. Some of us by choice, Auntie said. She opened the envelope and drew out a stack of documents with seals like small suns stamped at the corners. Naomi felt the room tilt, not from fear, but from the way truth makes a room wider than its walls. Auntie spread the papers. Names bloomed on them. Naomi's father, Ezekiel Okoro, an offshore trust she had never heard of, a corporation with a name that sounded like a proverb, and then her own name, in print, crisp enough to cut. What is that? Kendra asked. Auntie turned to Naomi, her eyes soft. Your father was a complicated man. He refused to speak of his wealth openly. He believed that money spoken of too soon grows legs and runs away. He invested quietly. He built quietly. He thought he would live to tell you, to teach you. He did not. Auntie touched Naomi's cheek. But an old friend of his, one who keeps accounts like some keep prayer journals, finally reached me. Finally reached us. DeShawn's mouth parted. This is ridiculous. Auntie tapped the embossed seal. Ridiculous, like sunlight, yes? Burn your eyes if you stare too long and still real. She pointed to a line Naomi couldn't quite read because her heartbeat had turned the letters to birds. Your father left you everything. The trusts matured last month. The approvals came through last week. How much is everything? Kendra asked, voice half hungry, half afraid. Auntie looked at Kendra as one looks at a mosquito on a baby's cheek. You did not greet me properly, she said coolly. Then she faced Naomi again. Child, you did not need him to stand to be tall. DeShawn reached for the papers, but Auntie's hand was faster, slapping his fingers with a speed that made Pastor Samuel's eyebrows lift. Don't touch what doesn't carry your name, she said. How much? DeShawn's voice frayed. What are we talking about? Some old stock? A piece of land in Emo nobody wants? Auntie let the words land one by one, like stones placed precisely to build a path. Naomi, she said, you are the sole beneficiary of a portfolio registered in your name at birth and tended by men who sit at tables you will now head. After last month's final clearance, the sum is $100 million at minimum, not counting the properties whose valuations are still coming. The silence hummed. The choir, on the other side of the door, found a minor key and hovered there like a prophecy waiting for permission to descend. Kendra swallowed. 100... What? 100 million, Auntie repeated. Plus properties, plus patents, plus equities that grow when you forget they are in the ground. Naomi's hands found one another and held on. She tried to speak. Tried to wrap words around the shock. Her father, who had died when she was 21 with a half-built garden behind their rental home and a laugh that doubled him over. Her father, who had taught her to balance a checkbook and an oath in the same breath. Her father, who had told her, when she was 8 and begging for sneakers she didn't need, that what was coming to her wasn't something she could wear out on a playground. He had meant it. DeShawn's mouth moved without sound, and then with too much of it. You're lying, he said. You're lying to ruin me. To ruin you? Auntie scoffed. I don't need stories to ruin you, my dear. You walked in here with your ruin dressed in red. She nodded to Kendra, whose face tightened like fabric in rain. Naomi looked from the papers to DeShawn and suddenly felt empty of pity, not cruel. Just emptied, the way a calabash is empty of the water it already poured out. She remembered the accident quite clearly, the way the morning had peeled itself open like an orange, the way DeShawn had insisted on driving fast because he was late for a meeting that turned out to be dinner reservations, the way Kendra's red scarf had fluttered in the passenger seat when they passed her on the sidewalk. And then the light, red going redder, the brake that refused to find the floor, the scream of steel being asked to dance when it had no time to learn the steps. She remembered waking in a hospital bed, legs a rumor under a white sheet, DeShawn's face a mask of grief that dissolved too quickly into impatience. Auntie pulled a chair close and bent till her eyes were level with Naomi's. "Child," she said again. But this time the word sounded like a bell rung to call the living and the dead to one place. "They gave me the wrong time for the choir because someone wanted me late. But God has a way of rearranging clocks. Will you sign anything today?" Naomi shook her head. "I will not sign my name away again." Pastor Samuel exhaled as if he'd been underwater. "We can reschedule, Reschedule what?" Kendra snapped. "The humility parade, the pity party. She's not even—" She stopped, as if the rest of the sentence could escape and bite her. DeShawn found his anger, that familiar warmth. "Naomi, don't do this. I took care of you. I carried you up steps when the elevator was out. You carried me because I was your wife," Naomi said. "Love is not a favor. Love is a vow." She looked down at the papers again, then up at Kendra. "You can have him." Kendra's eyes flicked to the leather envelope, then to DeShawn, calculating faster than mercy. "We should go." "We will," DeShawn said, voice stiff. He tapped the top page with a finger that now trembled. "There will be a divorce, Naomi, with or without your signature. You can keep your fairy tale of a fortune. I'll keep the life I built." "We built," Naomi said. "We built," he echoed. It sounded less true when he said it, and he heard it. A flicker of something. Shame? Envy crossed his face and then vanished. He reached for the doorknob. "Before you go," Auntie said, "you should know you cannot return. The door you opened today will not close behind you the same way. Think carefully." Kendra had already turned away, the click of her heels a metronome counting down the last seconds of DeShawn's old life. "Baby," she said, "the car's waiting." DeShawn hesitated. He looked at Naomi, at the woman who had once danced with him barefoot in a kitchen with no cabinets, who had spent nights formatting his proposals and days calming his clients, who had turned her pain into a garden of community meals after the accident, chair and all. He looked at her and saw, for a split second, the exact shape of the gift he was throwing away. Then pride gathered itself back around him like armor. He opened the door. The choir, startled, faltered, then rose into a chorus that sounded almost like a warning. Guests turned, whispers swelling. DeShawn and Kendra stepped into the aisle. Cameras woke from their stunned stupor and began to click. Auntie shut the door gently, as if protecting Naomi from the weather of other people's reactions. "Do you need water?" she asked. "No," Naomi said. Her voice was not louder, but the room heard it more. "I need air." They wheeled back into the sanctuary together, Naomi straight-backed in her chair, Auntie's hand a steady sun on her shoulder. People parted like the Red Sea, some with mouths open, some with eyes closed, some gazes heavy with pity Naomi refused to accept. Pity was a coat she would not wear. Pastor Samuel moved to the microphone. "Beloved," he began, "we have experienced a disturbance. Yet even storms cannot move the house built on rock." "He means you," Auntie whispered. "Your father's child." The church doors swung wide again, and a figure strode in against the light behind him. Tall, lean, dressed in gray that meant business without begging for it. He carried a leather satchel like Auntie's, and his bow to the pulpit was just respectful enough to be allowed. "Ms. Naomi Okoro," he called, voice carrying easily. He saw her and smiled a professional smile that still knew how to warm. "I'm sorry to intrude on a private moment. I've been flying all morning from Lagos. My name is Chenendu Uzo. Your father's attorney entrusted me with a final codicil. We need to speak. Today." DeShawn, in the aisle with Kendra, turned despite himself. His mouth tightened. Kendra's grip on his arm whispered panic. Naomi nodded carefully. "I'm Naomi." "Good," Uzo said. "Then we should go somewhere quiet." "We were just in somewhere quiet," Naomi said, and some of the congregation dared small smiles they quickly hid. "What's in the codicil?" Uzo glanced at Auntie, then at the room. "There are conditions attached to a portion of the estate," he said. "Time-sensitive conditions. Your father, he was a careful man." Auntie's hand firmed. "Of course he was." "What conditions?" Naomi asked. The choir had gone silent. The pastor stepped back as if he knew a different kind of liturgy was about to be read. Uzo opened his satchel and produced a smaller, slimmer envelope than Auntie's, sealed in the same sun-stamped wax. He held it toward Naomi, then paused. "I should warn you," he said. "Accepting this codicil means accepting the responsibility attached to it as well. It will change the map of your life. Again." Naomi's fingers found the edge of the envelope. She thought of her father's laugh and the way his eyes crinkled when he handed her a riddle instead of an answer. She thought of DeShawn's hand pushing the wheelchair with more care for the wheel than the woman. She thought of Kendra's perfume and the way it tried to make the air forget it was air. She thought of Auntie's voice saying the door will not close behind you the same way. She thought of the chair under her and the quiet strength of every woman she had ever known who had refused to be small. She broke the seal. Inside were 3 pages and a photograph. The photo was old, sun-washed. 2 men with arms around each other in front of a cinder-block school in Owerri, both smiling as if they had just tricked fate into buying them a soda. Her father was one of them. The other, Naomi recognized from stories, was Uncle Namdi, who had disappeared 20 years ago with a notebook full of numbers that did not add up until they built a tower. Uzo spoke softly, the way you speak when you know a person's past has just stood up and walked into the present. "Your father and his partner bought land together in the Delta, a parcel nobody wanted then because nobody could imagine it could hold the future. Oil is complicated. So are water rights. The courts finally recognized their claim 2 weeks ago. The transfer requires a trustee to take possession in person at a hearing in Port Harcourt in 48 hours. If the trustee fails to appear, the land, now valued beyond the original trust, reverts to the government under a lapsed claim clause. Your father named you trustee, Naomi." Naomi's breath left without permission. 48 hours, she said. "I haven't even." "You will," Auntie said, her voice iron and honey. "We will." 48 hours, DeShawn echoed from the aisle, unable to pretend he wasn't listening. Kendra pinched his arm. He didn't flinch. Uzo's gaze was kind but urgent. "There's more," he said. He tapped the 2nd page. "Your father attached a condition to a separate tranche. It remains sealed unless you fulfill a specific obligation." "What obligation?" Naomi asked. Uzo opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He looked at Auntie, then at Naomi again, and something like respect sharpened his features. "It says the obligation can only be spoken in the presence of family and one enemy," he read, eyes flicking over the lines. He lifted his head. Your father was dramatic. Auntie laughed without humor. He was himself. One enemy? Naomi repeated. I do not keep enemies. A voice cut through the low thrum of the room. You have one today, Kendra said, stepping forward a half pace before catching herself. Her chin lifted. Pride is a terrible teacher and a fast one. If you want someone to hate, you don't have to look far. Naomi didn't answer. She turned the photograph over. On the back, in her father's hand, was a note. For the day you realize you were always standing, even when you thought you had fallen. Uzo gestured subtly toward the doors. We should go discuss details. There is paperwork, flights. Naomi lifted her chin. The church smelled of lilies and worry. People had started to stand, unsure whether to clap for the truth or grief for the lie that had just been buried. Pastor Samuel looked like a man who had just watched a baptism and a funeral share a river. Naomi's legs were quiet, her heart loud. She closed the codicil and tucked it into her lap. We discuss here, she said. No more rooms that pretend to be private. No more whispers. Auntie's smile was small and proud. Then speak, child. Naomi turned her chair to face DeShawn directly, meeting him in the aisle that had been prepared for renewing vows, and instead delivered a reckoning. You came to end a life, she said. You accidentally delivered the beginning of another. I delivered nothing, he snapped, but it sounded thin, an instrument out of tune. Naomi didn't blink. You brought an enemy. She looked at Kendra, not cruelly, simply accurately. You can be that today if you choose. Kendra's shoulders tightened. Pride or fear, it was hard to tell which held her up. You don't scare me, she said. I am tired of scaring and being scared, Naomi said. I am building. She turned back to Uzo. What exactly must be done within 48 hours? Uzo opened his mouth to lay out the steps, signatures, affidavits, a security escort at the courthouse, a visit to land that had slept under other people's boots and waited for its name. But the church doors flung wide a second time, letting in sunlight and a woman with a face like a storm about to bless a farm. She was Naomi's mother. Her eyes went first to Naomi, then to Auntie, then to DeShawn and the woman at his side, then to the papers in Naomi's lap. 1,000 things moved across her face and resolved into one. Resolve. She did not say hello. She did not greet Pastor Samuel. She did not cry. She stepped forward, and her voice was low, the way a mother speaks when the house is on fire and the children need to hear instructions more than they need to hear comfort. Naomi, she said, tell me you did not sign anything. I did not, Mama. Good. She nodded once, like a queen receiving confirmation. Then she looked at DeShawn. You will leave this place now. He lifted his chin. I have as much right. You have no rights where you have broken vows, she said. Not today. Silence gathered again. Even the lilies seemed to listen. Naomi looked at her mother and felt something click into place, like a wheel catching a groove. She looked at Auntie and Uzo and Pastor Samuel, and then at the congregation that had watched her humiliation and her resurrection stride into the same hour. She took a breath that went all the way down to the bottom of her. I will go to Port Harcourt, she said. I will sit where my father meant me to sit. I will carry what he asked me to carry. and I will not carry what does not belong to me any longer." DeShawn's mouth opened to argue, but no argument came. Kendra tugged at his sleeve again, harder. Naomi turned the chair slightly, letting the light from the doorway wash the papers in her lap. She felt the weight of the chair, yes, but also the weight of the women who stood behind her. So many their names could not all fit in one throat. She felt the unsettling thrill of a map redrawn. Then another figure appeared in the doorway, breathless, hat in his hands, tie askew, eyes wide with the kind of fear that belongs to men who know secrets arrive on their own schedule. He looked directly at Naomi and blurted, before anyone could stop him, "Ms. Okoro, ma'am, please, you cannot go to Port Harcourt, not yet. They know you're coming." Auntie stiffened. "Who is they?" The man swallowed, glancing over his shoulder as if the parking lot could eavesdrop. "The ones who tried to bury your father's claim. The ones who—" He cut himself off, eyes flicking to DeShawn and Kendra. "They just wired someone to intercept at the courthouse. They think they can force a default. If you appear without protection, you might not leave the building." The lily scent turned sharp, like the air before rain. Pastor Samuel crossed himself without thinking. Uzo stepped closer to Naomi, his jaw set. Naomi steadied her hands on the chair. Her voice was neither loud nor small. It simply held. "Then," she said, "we will make a new plan." The man in the doorway shook his head. "There is one more thing." He looked at the papers in Naomi's lap and the codicil in Uso's hand. "Your father anticipated this. He left something else, an instruction hidden in a place only his child would look." His eyes went to the stained glass window above the pulpit, where a village scene shone in colored light, women carrying water, men bent over yam mounds, a child standing at the edge of a river with arms out as if greeting the sun. "What instruction?" Naomi said. The man took a step inside, lowered his voice, and spoke the first half of a sentence that landed in the room like thunder rolled into a whisper. "He said the person you must trust to deliver you through the courthouse is the very one who—" He didn't finish, because in the same heartbeat another voice spoke from the back, cold and familiar, finishing the sentence for him with a name that turned every head and split the air wide open. The name that cut through the church did not come from the messenger at the door. It came from a woman standing in the back pew. A woman no one had noticed because she had slipped in behind the gossip, behind the prayers, behind the shame and the surprise. DeShawn. The word traveled like a thrown stone. Heads turned. Auntie Loretta's jaw tightened. Naomi did not flinch. The messenger, hat twisted in his hands, nodded once, as if grateful someone was willing to do the hard part. "Yes," he said, voice rough. "Your father wrote that the only person who can carry you through the courthouse safely is the man who—" He glanced at the chair, at the brace beneath Naomi's scarf. "The man who helped break you." He wrote the name. He wrote DeShawn. A sound left Kendra like a laugh that had tripped and fallen. "This is ridiculous." DeShawn stood very still, as if he were the one carved into the stained glass. He looked from Naomi to the lawyer, from the lawyer to Auntie, and at last to the messenger. Something like anger rose. Then confusion swallowed it. "Why me?" he asked. "How could Ezekiel, how could her father—" "Because he understood men," said Naomi's mother, her voice low and dry, like Harmattan wind. He understood pride. He understood how guilt makes a man bold in strange ways. Uzo, the attorney from Lagos, flipped through the codicil pages, found a line, and read in a tone that made words behave. Trustee must arrive under the protection of the one who wronged her, that he might be seen in the light and tied to the truth. His presence will keep others honest. If he refuses, a secondary path exists, but it is longer, and there are eyes on every road. Kendra took a step, chin up. If the condition is his presence, we can rent a mannequin in a suit and call it love. Let's be serious. He doesn't need to go. DeShawn spoke without looking at her. Kendra, be quiet. That small sentence hung in the air like a bell no one expected to hear. Several aunties nodded without saying why. Kendra's mouth shut on instinct, then opened, disbelief burning in her eyes. Excuse me? DeShawn still did not look at her. He looked at Naomi. He saw, perhaps for the first time in a long time, not the chair, not the scarf, not the inconvenience he had turned her into in his mind, but the woman who had been his home. He saw how the churchlight turned the scar on her collarbone to a silver thread. He saw how her hand did not shake when she held the envelope with her father's seal. He saw the line of her chin, defiant, yes, but not to win an argument, to choose a life. I didn't know, he said, and the room understood he meant more than the money. I didn't know your father would do this. You didn't know my father, Naomi answered. You never tried. Sister, Pastor Samuel began, but stopped when Naomi lifted a hand slightly. He had learned when to speak and when to let the river run. I will not beg my enemy to protect me, Auntie Loretta said. We are not short of men or wisdom. Uzo shook his head once. The courts, he said carefully, are watching the claim. The companies who want the land are watching the courts. The men who want to disgrace your father's name are watching all of us. The codicil is not magic, but it is a plan. If we can walk in with DeShawn not as husband, not as hero, but as witness to his own guilt, then the people who want to twist the story will hesitate. They will not want their own man, because he has been their man in whispers, to testify under oath. If he walks beside Naomi, they cannot paint her as a confused, manipulated woman who signed away her rights for pity. They will have to deal with truth that stands up by itself. A ragged murmur moved through the room. The word oath landed heavy. Kendra's face changed in small, fast ways, like a woman scanning a menu and realizing the prices are not for her. What do you mean, their man? She shot at Uzo. Explain yourself. Uzo did not blink. I mean what I said. DeShawn's neck flushed. I never worked for anyone trying to hurt her father. Not worked, Uzo said. Used. There is a difference, but the effect is the same. The same men who whispered lies about Ezekiel's claim in Port Harcourt whispered to you in Houston that Naomi's value died in a hospital bed. They needed you to believe you were losing so you'd want more. Men like that do not force as often as they suggest. They open doors you think you found on your own. The messenger stepped forward, his voice softer. Sir, check your phone. Check the receipts. Check the sudden invitations and the new clients who never asked hard questions. Check the dinner that became a meeting that became a contract that sounded too sweet at midnight and bitter in the morning. It wasn't an accident that they built a story where you were the star and your wife the burden. A long silence. DeShawn swallowed, pulled his phone from his pocket as if it had caught fire there. His thumb slid. He scrolled. Everyone could see when something broke open behind his eyes. Kendra reached for his arm. "Don't be stupid." He pulled away, not harsh, but final. "How long?" he asked her quietly. "How long have you known?" Kendra laughed without sounding like laughter. "Known what? That you wanted more than pity compliments? That you wanted to feel powerful again? That she—" A small flick of her chin toward Naomi. "Made you feel small because you couldn't fix her?" Naomi's mother made a sound that was almost a word, almost a prayer. "Enough," Naomi said. "We are not collecting insults. We are collecting facts. Uzo, messenger, if we refuse this codicil clause, what happens?" "You can still claim the trust and the base sum," Uzo said. 100 million in holdings is yours by law. The land, however, the Delta parcel with the new judgment, will lapse into a default process. It would take months to fight. There are men who will not be so patient with your life in the meantime. If you accept the clause, we leverage public proceedings, put your enemy at your side, and bind the story to the truth in full view. It is risky in a different way, but it closes shadows. "And if he refuses?" Naomi asked, eyes on DeShawn but not begging. "Then," Uzo said, "we enact the secondary path today. It is crooked. We move you quietly to Abuja, then by river at night. Your father's people meet you halfway. But if the other side guesses even a little, they will turn men with no names loose on roads with no cameras." The sanctuary held its breath. The lilies returned to sweetness. Auntie squeezed Naomi's shoulder. "We choose the road where we do not have to hide. We have hidden enough." Naomi let the sentence settle. Then she turned to DeShawn. "You came here to make my life smaller," she said. "You will now decide if you have the courage to walk beside me into a room that makes both of us honest." DeShawn looked at the woman he had prepared to discard like clothes that no longer fit. He looked at Kendra, red dress like a warning he had mistaken for a promise. He looked at his phone again, at the emails that bloomed like stains when seen in the right light. He looked at his hands. "Yes," he said. It sounded like a confession. "I will go." Kendra's eyes went wide, then bright, then sharp. "You are not serious?" "I am," he said. "I should have been a long time ago." He turned to Naomi again. "I was a coward." "That is not the worst thing," Naomi said softly, and the room heard the truth hiding inside the gentleness. "Staying a coward is the worst thing." Auntie Loretta sniffed once, which in her language meant she could work with this. Naomi's mother came closer, eyes never leaving DeShawn's face. "You will not play games," she said. "Not on the road, not in the courthouse, not on the way back. If I sense a lie, I will stop the car with my bare hands." "Yes, ma'am," he said, because there was no other answer. Kendra's mouth thinned to a line. "You're making a mistake. Both of you." She shifted her gaze to Naomi. "You think he'll save you? He won't. He has never saved anyone. He only saves face." Naomi met her eyes without heat. "I am not asking him to save me," she said. "I am asking him to be seen." Uzo checked his watch. "We have 41 hours. Flights to Port Harcourt are full or full of watchers. We go through Atlanta. We switch to a charter in Accra. We land outside the city and drive in at dawn. We'll need a security team that does not take pictures. And we must fulfill the codicil's other requirement before we go." The presence of family and enemy, Naomi said, remembering the line. Uzo nodded. It says the obligation to reveal the second instruction must be spoken in the presence of family. He glanced at Auntie and Naomi's mother. And one enemy. His eyes flicked to Kendra without apology. I propose we do it now. Here, no more rooms that pretend to be private. Pastor Samuel stepped forward, small but steady. The sanctuary can hold truth and trouble both, he said. Say what must be said. Uzo lifted the codicil. Ezekiel writes, My daughter, the second instruction unlocks titles and access keys held in escrow across 3 continents. But it is bound to a promise I could not ask you for while I lived. If you accept this, you accept a vow to build what we spoke of when you were little and thought money was a pair of sneakers. The land must be returned to the people in part. A hospital must rise on your mother's side of the river, bearing your grandmother's name. A scholarship endowment must be made for the children of women injured in accidents like yours, so that no chair is a prison. And... Uzo paused, eyes scanning the next line twice, then a third time. You must choose one person from the ones who wronged you to chair the fund for 5 years. Murmurs rose like a hot wind. Auntie's head cocked. Naomi's mother frowned in a way that meant she was thinking very fast and very carefully. Chair? Kendra echoed, incredulous. Chair what? A fund? With money? Real money? Uzo kept reading. The person must do the work, learn the accounts, meet the mothers, attend the funerals, sign the grants. It is not a title. It is labor. If he fails, he loses his compensation and the community chooses his replacement. If he does it for 5 straight years, he will be paid fairly but not richly, and he will never again be able to work under the shadow of the men who whispered to him. That was my design. Uzo looked up. The room seemed to lean toward Naomi. Your father believed contrition without work is just performance, he said gently. He designed a job that changes a man or breaks him in a place everyone can see. DeShawn's throat moved. He wants me to chair it, he said. It was not a question. Your name is written, Uzo replied. If you refuse, a secondary name appears when the envelope is warmed over flame. Your father was a dramatist, yes, but a practical one. He says the second name is the one who believes she is untouchable because she hides behind fashion and other people's anger. Every eye slid to Kendra like a compass to north. She did not flinch. She smiled, slow. I don't hide, she said. I stand in the open. And I'm not running a charity for the next 5 years because your dead father wrote my name in wax. Naomi's mother's voice cut through the heat. Good, she said. Then we need not waste time. Naomi's eyes went back to her father's hand in the photograph without leaving the present. She could hear him saying it when she was 9 and they counted coins for church. Money has spirit, Naomi. If you don't tell it what to do, it will tell you what it did to you. She felt a strange calm as she looked first at DeShawn, then at Kendra. I accept the conditions, she said. All of them. The land, the hospital, the scholarship, and the chair. I accept the clause that he walks beside me into the courthouse. I accept the work that forces our enemy to be seen by the people she hurts when she laughs. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Yes, Auntie whispered, a word soaked in pride. Uzo exhaled. His relief did not soften his focus. "Then we move," he said. "We need bags, documents, medication. Naomi, your chair needs a servicing before a long trip. I know a man who can fix in an hour what hospitals bill in a day." "I'll call the deacons," Pastor Samuel said, already moving. "We can gather what the road asks for." Naomi's mother bent and kissed her daughter's forehead as if it were both blessing and seal. "I am coming," she said. "Argue if you like." Naomi smiled. "I would never win." The first hour after the decision moved like water. People who had sat to spectate stood to serve. The choir carried boxes instead of notes. Aunties who'd come in gili left in headscarves, their hands too busy for crowns. Uzo stepped into a quiet side office and spoke into 3 different phones in 3 different languages, thread-pulling a path that would look to outsiders like luck. The messenger took measurements of Naomi's chair with a contractor's eye and returned with an Allen key, a pump, and a small bottle of oil. DeShawn helped without ceremony. He wheeled the chair to the side aisle when the front door grew crowded. He held doors without looking as if he deserved a medal for it. He took a phone call from a client and said, to the client's surprise, "I cannot do noon Tuesday. I have court." He did not explain. Kendra did not lift a box. She stood with her arms crossed and her jaw set, somewhere between a statue and a threat. Occasionally, she looked at the codicil envelope as if trying to melt it with her mind. When the sun was a hand higher in the sky, the sanctuary thinned. The plan had shape. Naomi's mother would ride with Naomi and Uzo. Auntie and the messenger would go ahead to the airport to watch who watched. 2 deacons would drive a second car to peel off decoys at the interchange. DeShawn would meet them at a rented hangar because the cameras at the main terminal could be bought by any man with a briefcase and a grudge. Before they left, Naomi asked for 2 minutes alone with the choir. The choir, surprised, gathered in a circle around her and swayed like a single body listening for rain. "Sing what you sing when a mother is tired," Naomi said. "Sing the one that says, 'We are not going where the dark tells us. We are going where the light is already waiting.'" They sang. It sounded like a road being blessed. When the last note settled into the wood pews, Naomi looked for Kendra and found her standing under the stained glass window, arms folded, eyes watching everything as if cataloging it for a story where she would be the only reader. "Walk with me," Naomi said, and without waiting to see if the other woman would obey, she rolled down the side aisle toward the back door where the air tasted like outside. Kendra followed because curiosity is stronger than contempt when you think there might be power to collect on the other side. They stopped under a jacaranda that dropped purple flowers like a slow rain. Cars idled. Auntie's voice carried across the parking lot, giving instructions no one dared ignore. DeShawn stood near the corner, phone to his ear, face set in an expression Naomi recognized from 10 years of watching him try to look brave. "Why me?" Kendra asked, not bothering to make the question sound like a question. "Why would he even write my name as second?" "Your father never met me."
"He knew you anyway," Naomi said. "Men like him knew people by the damage they offered to help make. He knew you would think you were a different kind of storm."
Kendra rolled her eyes.
"You talk pretty when you think you've already won." "I haven't won," Naomi said. "I chose a road with light on it. That's not the same." "You're really going to make him chair a fund," Kendra said, half incredulous, half amused. "The man can't even chair his own life." "Maybe that is what chairing other people's hope will teach him," Naomi said. "Or it will teach him how to fail in front of women who won't let him pretend it's raining. when it's tears. Kendra looked at DeShawn again, then back at Naomi. Do you still love him? Naomi did not flinch at the question. She looked at the man she had married and at the woman who had taken his arm the way a thief tests a gate. She felt the old ache, but she also felt the new map rolling out beneath her wheels. Love is not the right word, she said. I remember. I honor what was true, and I refuse what was not. Kendra's smile had no warmth in it. You talk like a pastor and a judge had a child. My people make words do work, Naomi replied. I am my people's child, Auntie called from the lot. It's time. Naomi nodded. One more thing, she said to Kendra. There is a choice in front of you. Not about a fund, about how you will tell this story to yourself later. You can say you were punished by a dead man's paper. Or you can say you were invited to put your hands on something that lifts instead of cuts. If your name appears in that flame, and if he fails, I will hold you to it. And if you refuse, know this, I will not think of you again, and that will be its own judgment. Kendra's hand went to her throat as if a necklace she did not wear had choked her. Then she laughed, quick and mean, to chase away the feeling. Get on your plane, she said. Play rich. Naomi didn't answer. She rolled back toward the car where her mother stood ready with a blanket and a small bag of chin-chin, because mothers always know when the road needs something sweet. They pulled away from the church in a modest line of vehicles that looked like any other Sunday shift. 2 blocks from the building, Naomi felt a change in the air. The messenger raised his head like a dog catching an old scent. Uzo's eyes checked the mirror twice, then once more, and then he said very calmly, We are being followed. Naomi's mother did not startle. She tightened her scarf and sat straighter. How many cars? 1, maybe 2 more at the light, Uzo said. Gray SUV, black sedan. They won't do anything here. They'll wait for the freeway. The messenger tapped his phone screen, sent something coded and brief. Our decoys will turn at the interchange. We keep straight when they expect a right. Seat belt, Naomi's mother told her daughter, though Naomi was always the one who remembered. They took the feeder road along the bayou, the water a ribbon of brown that held the light like a promise and a warning. The jacarandas thinned, warehouses rose, walls muraled with saints and slogans. Naomi watched the rearview mirror because she had learned to watch the back door of her life as carefully as the front. At the interchange, the second car peeled off to the right with great confidence and unnecessary speed. The gray SUV followed like a hungry dog. The black sedan hesitated, then stayed with Naomi's car. Smart, Uzo said. They split. Smarter, said the messenger, pointing ahead. Our saints. A delivery truck, an old bus with a hand-painted route sign, and a small hatchback with a deacon at the wheel rolled in front of them like a screen drawn by an invisible hand. They crossed 3 lanes as one body. The black sedan lost the line, trapped behind a bus that refused to speed because the driver respected both the law and the passengers' bones. They reached the old airfield by a route no one who wanted efficiency would take. Efficiency is how men who want to be seen move. Survival is the route taken by women who plan to arrive. At the hangar, a charter pilot with forearms like carved wood and a face that had outlived 3 political cycles checked papers and did not ask for selfies. I cry in 4 hours if the wind behaves, he said. We leave as soon as your man arrives.
Which man? Naomi's mother asked. The pilot jerked his chin toward the far gate. The one running. DeShawn, tie tucked in his shirt like a boy who had just learned flight wasn't the same as running fast, slipped through the side entrance and crossed the tarmac at a half sprint that would look, later, like urgency. He reached them breathless and held up a small bag. Documents, he said. Passport. I had to go home and... Kendra appeared behind him, not running, heels clicking, red dress now covered by a black coat that whispered money and menace at the same time. She did not smile. You think I'm letting you fly to another country with your ex-wife and a fairy tale? She said. I'm not stupid. Stay out of this, DeShawn said. I am this, Kendra snapped. They made me this. We are in this. Uzo stepped between them without touching either. The flight is for 4, he said. Naomi, her mother, DeShawn, and myself. Auntie and the messenger go ahead. Everyone else goes home and prays in their kitchens. Kendra's eyes slid to the hangar guard. She flicked her wrist. A man who had been lingering by the stacked pallets turned his face just enough for Naomi to see the scar owning his cheek. He was not here to pray in any kitchen. Naomi's mother saw him in the same breath. Back in the car, she told Naomi, voice level and calm, which is the sound danger makes when it is about to be outnumbered by mothers and the truth. No, Naomi said, and it did not sound like defiance or theater. It sounded like a choice made long before this morning, on nights when she had learned to wheel herself to the bathroom because no one came when she called. She turned to the scarred man and spoke as if she were asking him to pass salt at dinner. Do you have a mother? The question surprised him. Everyone has a mother, he said out of habit. Does she know how you stand at airfields and hope strangers are worth the money? Naomi asked. He looked at the ground, and then at Kendra, and then at Naomi again. Ma'am, I don't want trouble. You are trouble, Naomi's mother said quietly. But you have the chance to be less. The pilot's voice cut across the air. Doors close in 2 minutes. Uzo weighed everything a trained man can weigh in a moving room and made the smallest nod to Naomi. The nod meant, we take the road with light again. Naomi lifted her chin. Kendra, she said, you can come to Accra, not on this plane, on the next. If your name appears in that flame, you will need to know where we are going, not to stop us, but to stand where the mothers can see you. Or you can go home and practice a speech about how you were wronged by a dead man's pen. Either way, this story will remember you. Kendra's mouth twitched. You talk too much. I talk enough, Naomi said, because silence is what let you in. The scarred man took a step back without meaning to. The guard did not stop him. The hunger in this place belonged to a different animal now. Time, the pilot called. They moved. Uzo took Naomi's chair over the lip of the door with care that did not feel like pity. DeShawn reached for the bag straps and did not fumble. Naomi's mother climbed the steps and did not look back. At the top of the stairs, Naomi paused. She turned once toward the woman in the black coat and the red dress underneath. The light made the coat shine like oil. For a second, Naomi saw the delta water, the land her father had loved quietly, the hospital that would rise, the scholarship letters that would smell like cheap ink and big hope. She saw DeShawn's face when a mother handed him a form and he had to say, I'm sorry, because the budget demanded honesty. She saw Kendra at a table in a community hall, shoulders tight, learning how to read ledgers like they were mirrors. She turned again and let Uzo guide her into the cabin. The door shut. The engine woke, throat deep and ready. As the plane began its slow roll toward the runway, Naomi remembered the promise she had made to herself when she was 8, and her father had told her money had spirit. She would tell it what to do. It would not tell her who she was. She buckled in. The runway stretched ahead like a single long sentence with no comma to catch a breath. The wheels picked up speed. The ground held on, then let go. Only when the city dropped below them and the river became a thin brown line stitched across a quilt of roofs did Naomi allow herself to whisper to no one and everyone, "We are coming." And then, because this story is also for people listening in houses where the air smells like rice and diesel and laundry soap, and for people watching on phones while buses shake their bones, the narrator's voice tucked the smallest invitation into the tale of the scene without breaking the spell. If this story has you holding your breath, remember to breathe with us. If you want to walk with Naomi to Port Harcourt and back, make sure you are here when we land. Tap subscribe so you don't lose the road. If you believe more people should hear stories where women choose light over shadows, tap like and share it with a friend who needs it. And before we touch down in the next chapter, tell us in the comments where you're watching from: Houston, Owerri, Accra, Lagos, Atlanta, Nairobi, London, your living room, your shop, so the road can hear your city's name. One more thing. What would you have done in Naomi's place when the codicil named your enemy as your escort? Say yes, or take the long, dark road? Have you ever seen a moment where the person who hurt someone had to help heal what they broke? The plane nose tilted. The clouds opened a path. Naomi closed her eyes for a second, the way someone closes the door of a house they love and knows they will return with the key. Then a small red light on Uzo's phone blinked with a coded message from the team ahead in Accra, and he read it, and his face changed. And the chapter ended on the click of his seatbelt tightening again as he leaned in and said, "Naomi, there's been a breach in the courthouse registry. Your father's partner's name, Uncle Namdi, just appeared on a new transfer filed an hour ago by someone using your husband's email." The word breach cracked the air like thunder trapped inside the plane. Naomi's fingers tightened on the armrest as she turned toward Uzo. "What did you say?" Uzo didn't answer immediately. He was already scrolling through the encrypted messages, his jaw set tight. The hum of the engine filled the silence like an anxious heartbeat. DeShawn leaned forward. "What do you mean someone used my email? I don't even have access to that kind of—" Uzo held up a hand. "Quiet." His voice was calm, but the kind of calm that happens when panic is a luxury. A document was filed an hour ago in Port Harcourt, claiming transfer of ownership for the Delta land. The signature was attached to your email address, DeShawn. Someone is impersonating you, or worse, someone is inside your old system. Naomi's mother clutched the armrest. "Can they take it before we get there?" "Not yet," Uzo said. "They can delay the claim and confuse the records. But if we don't reach the court in person within 36 hours, they can finalize it." Auntie Loretta's voice came through Uzo's phone on speaker. "We're already on the ground in Accra. The men who met us say the airport in Port Harcourt is crawling with watchers, men with government badges and eyes too sharp for tourists. You'll need a different entry." Naomi glanced out the window. Clouds drifted below them, the white endless and silent. "Then we'll find another way in." Uzo's phone buzzed again. "There is another way," he said slowly. A secondary dock route from Bonny Island, by water. But it's dangerous. The tides are unpredictable. And the people who control that path don't answer to the courts. Who do they answer to? DeShawn asked. Uzo met his eyes. Money, fear, sometimes both. Naomi's mother looked at her daughter. You don't have to go through that water, my child. We can send lawyers. Naomi shook her head. No lawyer can stand for me in that room. Daddy's words said it clearly. I must appear myself. DeShawn rubbed his face. If they're using my email, it's because someone inside my office gave them access. Those men who offered me new clients months ago, Uzo was right. They were grooming me. They wanted me close enough to her to know when she would lose hope. Naomi looked at him. And now you understand how far they're willing to go. That's why you're coming with me. Not to protect me, but to see what you helped create. DeShawn nodded. Shame written on his face. Then I'll see it through. The plane landed in Accra under a curtain of rain. The city lights blinked like anxious eyes across the runway. Waiting near the hangar was Auntie Loretta, wrapped in a raincoat of deep indigo, her Geel smaller this time but no less regal. Beside her stood two men, one young, one old, both dressed in civilian jackets that failed to hide the outline of the guns beneath. Security, Auntie said briskly. They owe me favors from a case 10 years ago. Don't ask questions, just follow their lead. Uzo briefed them quickly. We'll drive to Bonny by nightfall, board a small boat across the creek. Once we cross, we'll move through back roads into Port Harcourt before dawn. We can't use phones after this point. Every call might be traced. Then we'll use our mouths and eyes, Naomi's mother said firmly. God gave us those first. By midnight, the convoy reached the edge of the Niger Delta. The rain had thinned to mist, but the air smelled of salt and secrets. The sound of frogs and generators mixed into a strange kind of hymn. At the dock, a small fishing boat waited, paint peeling, but engine humming. A boy no older than 20 untied the rope and looked up at Naomi. You're the woman with the papers, he said. His accent was thick and musical. My uncle said to take you quiet and fast. Naomi nodded. Then let's go. DeShawn helped her into the boat without a word. He steadied her chair, now folded beside them, and sat opposite her. The boy pushed off, and the boat slipped into the dark water like a secret sliding between pages. The river smelled of iron and oil. In the distance, the glow of refineries flickered, like fire trapped inside glass. Naomi watched the reflections ripple, remembering her father's stories of how this same river once carried traders and fishermen before greed turned it heavy with machines. Uzo sat near the bow, scanning the fog. We have company, he murmured. Naomi followed his gaze. Two other boats trailed faintly behind them, their engines softer but persistent. DeShawn's pulse quickened. You think they're following us? They're not here to fish, Uzo replied. Keep low. The boy cut the engine, letting the boat drift into reeds near the bank. They listened. The other engine slowed, then stopped. A light flashed once, twice, 3 times, then went dark. Auntie whispered a short prayer. They're waiting for us to move first. Naomi's mother gripped her daughter's shoulder. If anything happens, nothing will, Naomi said. Not tonight. Uzo took a pistol from his jacket and handed it to DeShawn. Do you know how to use this? DeShawn hesitated, then nodded. Enough to scare someone, not enough to kill. Good, Uzo said. We only need the first. Minutes passed like hours. The fog thickened, and the hum of insects filled the silence until it became unbearable. Then, from somewhere upriver, a voice shouted in Yoruba, "We know who you are, Naomi Okoro. Turn back, and no harm will come to you." The boy cursed under his breath. They know your name. Naomi didn't flinch. They also know why I'm here, she said quietly. If they want what's mine, they'll have to face me. Uzo looked at her, half in disbelief, half in respect. You sound like your father. Then we'll finish what he started. He turned the engine back on. The boat jerked forward. The other engines roared to life in response. The chase began. Water sprayed into the air, cold and sharp. The boats weaved through mangroves, branches whipping past. The boy steered with the instincts of someone born on this river. Behind them, the pursuers closed in, voices shouting through the mist. DeShawn fired one warning shot into the air. The echo cracked across the water. The lead boat slowed, uncertain. Keep going, Naomi shouted. Don't stop! The boat surged forward, slicing through the fog. Ahead, faint lights appeared, small fires burning on wooden poles. That's the dock, Uzo said. We're almost there. The boat slammed against the wooden landing. Naomi's mother and auntie climbed out first, pulling Naomi's chair onto the planks. DeShawn lifted her gently, his arms trembling but sure. Then came the sound of footsteps, many of them. Out of the shadows stepped a tall man in a gray raincoat. His face was thin, his smile thinner. Ms. Okoro, he said smoothly, your father would be proud. You made it this far. Uzo froze. How do you know her father? The man's smile deepened. Because I worked for him. Once. He stepped forward into the lamplight. Naomi's breath caught. The resemblance was faint, but unmistakable. The same jawline as in the photograph from the codicil. Uncle Namdi? Naomi whispered. Yes, the man said, spreading his hands. Alive. And waiting. The dock fell silent, except for the dripping of rain from the eaves. Auntie Loretta's voice was low, suspicious. You're supposed to be dead. Dead is a word people use when they can't imagine surviving in silence, Namdi said. Your father and I made a pact years ago to protect what we built. When he died, I stayed hidden, waiting for the right time to return. But the vultures were faster. They want the land, the oil, and the legacy. I came to stop them. Uzo's eyes narrowed. Then why was your name on a forged transfer? Namdi looked at him. Because someone inside the ministry used my identity. They thought I was gone for good. They don't know I'm standing here. DeShawn lowered the gun slightly. So you're on our side? That depends, Namdi said. Are you? The question lingered, heavy as thunder. Naomi wheeled forward. If you're truly with us, prove it. Help me get to the courthouse. Namdi nodded once. Then we move at first light, but be warned. Someone in your circle has already sold your route. The men on that boat weren't hired by strangers. They were sent by someone who stood with you in that church. Auntie gasped. Who? Namdi's eyes turned toward the dark horizon. You'll know soon enough. The traitor is closer than you think. The next morning, the group boarded an old van that smelled of diesel and pepper soup. The drive to Port Harcourt was tense and wordless. Every checkpoint felt like a trap. Namdi handled the guards with practiced ease, slipping folded notes and firm words where needed. By noon, they reached the courthouse. A white building stood tall and stern, its walls cracked from years of neglect. Reporters swarmed the entrance, cameras flashing. The story of the $100 million inheritance had already leaked. Uzo leaned close to Naomi. "Are you ready?"
"I've been ready all my life," she said.
They entered the courtroom. The air inside was cold, the marble floor echoing each sound. At the far end sat the panel of judges. The lead judge looked up. "Ms. Naomi Okoro, trustee and claimant, step forward." Naomi wheeled herself to the front with DeShawn standing behind her and Namdi to her left. Before the proceedings began, a man in a dark suit entered from the side door. His face was hidden behind glasses, but his voice was unmistakable. "Objection, my lords," he said. "This claim is invalid. The petitioner has arrived under false pretenses. The signature on record proves that she relinquished her rights." Naomi froze. That voice, smooth, arrogant, familiar. It was her father's former accountant, Mr. Kazim, the man who had helped DeShawn set up their early businesses. But he wasn't alone. Behind him walked Kendra, dressed in a navy suit, hair pinned, face expressionless. A gasp swept the courtroom.
"Kendra?"
Naomi's mother hissed. Kendra smiled faintly, her voice carrying like silk dipped in venom.
"I told you, Naomi. You don't scare me. You inspire me."
She handed the judge a folder. "And I'm here as the new co-signatory of the Okoro Trust." The judge frowned. "On what authority?" Kendra's eyes flicked to DeShawn. "On the authority of her husband's consent and electronic authorization, sent from his verified address." Naomi turned slowly toward DeShawn, her face a storm barely contained.
"You said you didn't—"
"I didn't," DeShawn stammered. "I swear I didn't." Kendra smiled. "You didn't need to." "You left your laptop unlocked!" The courtroom erupted in whispers. Uzo slammed his folder shut. "This is fraud!" But Kendra only tilted her head. "Maybe. Or maybe it's business. Either way, Naomi, you're late. Your father's trust now belongs to us." The judge raised a hand for silence. "Enough. The court will recess for 1 hour to review these claims." The gavel struck once, loud as a gunshot. As the room emptied, Kendra leaned close to Naomi's ear, her whisper soft and sharp.
"You should have stayed crippled and quiet."
Naomi didn't move, didn't blink. Then she smiled, small and dangerous.
"You should have read the last page of the codicil."
Kendra blinked.
"What last page?"
Naomi's smile widened.
"The one that says everything you just did only works until I speak one word."
"What word?" Naomi's gaze locked on her. Steady as sunrise. "Inheritance." And the courtroom lights flickered as if the air itself had just remembered who truly owned the story. If you've followed Naomi's journey this far, take a second to breathe, because things are about to explode in the next chapter. What would you do if your enemy walked into court with your inheritance papers? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're ready to see how Naomi fights back, make sure to like this video and subscribe right now so you don't miss the finale. The courtroom buzzed like a hive ready to sting. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, and every lawyer in the room smelled history being made. Naomi sat motionless in her wheelchair, her hands clasped tightly on her lap. DeShawn stood beside her, pale, torn between guilt and disbelief. Uzo's fingers danced over his files, checking, cross-checking, searching for the one page that could pierce the fraud. Auntie Loretta watched from the back row, silent but burning with fury. At the bench, the judges whispered among themselves. The head judge, a woman with silver hair and the calm of someone who had seen power rise and rot many times, looked down at Naomi. "Ms. Okoro," she said, "you mentioned a last page. Do you have this page in your possession?" Naomi nodded slowly. "Yes, my lord. It is in the envelope sealed by my father's hand. It was not to be opened until the word inheritance was spoken in this very court." A murmur ran through the hall. Kendra's confident smile wavered slightly. "She's bluffing," she whispered to Mr. Kazim. But Naomi reached into the inner pocket of her jacket and brought out a small brown envelope, the same one her father's lawyer, Uzo, had kept sealed through the entire journey. "This," she said, "is the final page of my father's codicil." Uzo stepped forward. "My lords, with your permission, we will open it publicly." The lead judge gestured. "Proceed." Uzo broke the wax seal. A faint scent of camphor and paper, long hidden, drifted through the air. He unfolded the page. His eyes widened. "Oh, Ezekiel Okoro, you genius," he whispered. He began to read aloud. "To my daughter Naomi, if ever you stand in court defending what was already yours, know this. Those who come bearing forged signatures and borrowed pride will expose themselves when they claim what they cannot prove. My inheritance to you includes not just the land, but the knowledge of what binds it. The Delta Trust is secured under biometric confirmation and verbal key. The true heir's identity is sealed in two parts, blood and voice. Only the voice of the trustee can unlock the claim. Only the blood of my line can confirm it. Should any man or woman attempt to claim it otherwise, their documents, emails, and signatures shall nullify themselves in the court's system, triggering a full security audit under federal record. Signed, Ezekiel N. Okoro. Uzo looked up. The courtroom fell silent. Then a deep click sounded from one of the monitors as the court clerk tried to pull up the electronic file for verification. Every document Kendra had filed a few hours earlier turned gray on the screen, each marked void, unverified origin. Gasps echoed. Mr. Kazim's mouth dropped open. "That's impossible." "No," said Uzo, smiling grimly. "It's digital foresight. Ezekiel anticipated everything." The judge leaned forward. "So the petitioner's claim is valid." Kendra stood up, her voice trembling. "That can't be. You can't prove she's his bloodline just by—" But Naomi interrupted, her tone calm and strong. "There's more, my lord." She turned to Uzo, who nodded. From a small case, he produced a compact device. "Your father instructed me to carry this. It contains the recorded phrase, the verbal key that activates verification. He also left a second recording with the Registrar of Deeds, which must match the petitioner's voice pattern." The judge gestured again. "Play it." Uzo pressed the button. Ezekiel Okoro's voice filled the courtroom. warm, firm, and steady. My daughter Naomi, if you are hearing this, then the vultures have arrived. Speak the words that belong to you. I am the keeper of your promise. Then the land, the trust, and the legacy will remember your name. The room was silent. Naomi closed her eyes. She drew in a slow breath and spoke clearly. I am the keeper of your promise. The device beeped. The court clerk's monitor flickered again. A large green checkmark appeared beside Naomi's name. Biometric and vocal confirmation complete, the system announced. Trust verified. All fraudulent documents nullified. It was over. The judges conferred briefly, then the lead judge lifted her gavel. By the authority of this court, the Okoro Delta Trust is hereby awarded to Ms. Naomi Ezekiel Okoro. All false claimants shall be investigated for fraud and obstruction of justice. The gavel fell with a resounding bang. Naomi exhaled. For the first time in years, her shoulders loosened. She looked up at the stained glass window high above the courtroom, where sunlight broke through and painted her face gold. Kendra's eyes darted to the exit. Mr. Kazim whispered frantically, "Run!" Security officers stepped forward before they could move. The camera flashes returned, bright and merciless. "You can't do this to me!" Kendra shouted as she was escorted out. "You think you've won, Naomi, but you'll still need me. You'll see." Naomi didn't look at her. "I already have," she said quietly. "You showed me who you were. I thank you for that." DeShawn lowered his head, tears catching in the corners of his eyes. "Naomi, I don't deserve to be here." "You don't," Naomi said softly, "but you came anyway." "I was blind. I let pride guide me." "And now?" He looked at her. "Now, I'll build what your father asked me to build. The hospital, the scholarships, the foundation. I'll chair it if you'll still have me." Naomi studied him for a long moment. "My father gave you that role to redeem yourself, not to serve me. Do it for the mothers who'll never walk again because no one stopped to help them. Do it for the girls who think broken means worthless. That's your atonement, DeShawn, not forgiveness. Work." He nodded. "Then I'll work until it's done." Outside the courthouse, the crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras surrounded Naomi as reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Okoro, how does it feel to inherit $100 million after being abandoned?" Naomi's lips curved into a serene smile. "It's not about the money. It's about legacy. My father didn't build this for greed. He built it for growth. And I will honor that." Auntie Loretta wrapped her arms around her niece, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You did it, child. You finished his story." "No," Naomi said. "I started mine." Weeks passed. News spread across Africa and the diaspora, the woman who reclaimed her father's empire. Newspapers ran photos of Naomi visiting the construction site of the new Grace Okoro Memorial Hospital. DeShawn, dressed simply, helped coordinate volunteers, sweat glistening on his brow. The same hands that once signed away her happiness were now building something real. In another city, Kendra's frozen accounts were being investigated. Her face disappeared from society pages. People stopped returning her calls. But in Port Harcourt, in a quiet courtyard filled with jacarandas, Naomi sat beneath a tree as children laughed in the distance. She wore a simple Ankara dress, hair braided back, sunlight dancing across her skin. Nnamdi approached slowly, his steps steady. "Your father would be proud," he said. You brought the family name home.
Naomi smiled. He didn't give me a fortune, Uncle. He gave me a responsibility.
Namdi nodded.
And you carried it better than any man I know.
She looked up at the hospital building, its first wing already standing tall.
Maybe now, she said softly, we can heal more than just the body.
He followed her gaze. You still think about them?
Kendra? DeShawn? Sometimes.
Naomi's voice was gentle.
But not with anger. Every pain they gave me shaped the woman I am, and every scar taught me a lesson worth more than gold.
The sound of laughter from the courtyard grew louder. A little girl in crutches waved at Naomi.
Auntie?
The nurse says I can walk again soon. Naomi's eyes filled.
Good. Walk for both of us.
The child grinned and hobbled away.
Naomi turned her face toward the setting sun. Daddy, she whispered, I kept your promise.
A breeze rustled through the jacarandas. Somewhere, it felt like an answer. If this story moved you, if Naomi's strength, her rise from betrayal to triumph, touched something inside you, pause for a moment before scrolling. Would you have found forgiveness the way she did? Or would revenge have ruled your heart? Tell us in the comments. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, the stories of African women who rise against all odds, click like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs hope today. Because every story you share gives another woman her voice back. And sometimes that's worth more than 100 million